My colleague Shiv Arur is now joining me live from the Gaza border. Shiv, what more can you tell us today about that imminent ground offensive that Israel started yesterday?
Polomi, I don't know if you can see it right behind me. A bomb has just dropped. An F-16 has just conducted an airstrike while we were on frame right now. The plume of smoke you see building in the distance behind me is the latest airstrike that's just happened. We've seen a large number of fighters, lot of air activity today, a slightly less ground activity compared to yesterday, but a lot of air activity. So that particular plume of smoke you see in this area, that's the latest airstrike that we're seeing right now. The ground operations began yesterday, Polomi, and we've been here since yesterday, in fact, in the southern part of Israel. And I can tell you that it is perhaps the biggest day as far as air operations are concerned, as is being borne out by that image behind me. 450 airstrikes in the last 24 hours is what the Israeli Defense Forces have officially announced. But all manner of weapons are being used that we can confirm. Not only are there airstrikes taking place, and this is the one you're seeing behind me is actually the 5th or the 6th since we arrived here a couple of hours ago on the Gaza front line, but also tank fire, artillery fire, and all of it concentrated in this part of the Gaza Strip, which is the northern end, the northeastern end of the Gaza Strip. We're about 1.5 kilometers from the fence. That's the reason why you've got this a very wide view of the Gaza northern sector itself, not far from Gaza City. The ground operation itself appears to still be quite limited, even though what the Israeli Defense Minister had said yesterday was that this was expanded ground activity, but this is still far less than any kind of a full-scale ground invasion of the kind Israel conducted, back in 2009 and then again in 2014. So this is still a limited ground offensive, even though it's much larger than what preceded it, which was basically squads of commando forces who had gone in for reconnaissance, for operations to eliminate terrorists who are out of reach of those airstrikes. But beyond that, one full column of tanks, Polomi, has been relentlessly firing. There was an IDF officer who was grievously injured yesterday in a mortar attack, we are told, in a sector visible from here. Another soldier was also injured in an anti-tank attack. So despite this pulverization of the northern part of the Gaza Strip, it appears that the offensive potency of the Hamas has not been obliterated completely. Let me not say not damaged, but it hasn't been erased completely, because we saw rockets flying over our heads even while we were reporting yesterday. Anti-tank fire continues. Mortars are clearly being fired. So clearly some of those positions from where the Hamas is still able to attack are out of reach, or at least not within reach just yet of the Israeli forces. So we'll have to wait and see. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant yesterday said something very telling, Polomi. He said it's going to be a long and hard war, which means not a kind of blitzkrieg, slapdash operation that goes in and comes out. It's going to be long and hard, and that brings with it a lot of complexities.
Okay, so it's going to be a long and hard war is what the defense minister is saying. Why exactly so? Is this because of the international pressure that they're going slow? Is this because of the hostages that are held by Hamas on the inside of the Gaza Strip? Why exactly has Israel decided to adopt this approach?
Three key reasons. Two of them you've named. One of them, of course, is the hostage situation, Polomi. Even though I've assessed that in the last 24 hours or 48 hours, there's been a very marked shift in how the Israeli system is viewing the entire hostage situation. They believe now that Hamas is, perhaps drunk on power, with what it managed to achieve with the terror attack on October the 7th, and is only really playing for time. It doesn't intend to release the hostages. Even though there is a mediatory process over the release of Palestinian security hostages, prisoners, in exchange for the Israeli hostages. That doesn't, for the moment, appear to be happening. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, like you said, international pressure. Israel's biggest ally, the United States, has repeatedly called on Israel to, go easy as far as the ground operation is concerned. And that's perhaps one of the big reasons why a full-scale operation of the kind, a full-scale invasion rather, hasn't yet taken place. We don't know if it will take place. But the third, very important operational reason, Polomi, is that the Hamas is, no longer being seen as just a terrorist outfit. They're being seen as an outfit that has military level capabilities, the know-how and the weaponry that they've gotten from Iran, the kind of methods that they've used to mask their presence in various parts of the Gaza Strip, the manner in which they've been able to survive, 21 days of relentless bombardment, Polomi, and still be able to live to not only tell the tale, but to attack Israel again. There have been 6 or 7 rocket attacks just today. That goes to show that this is, an enemy of Israel that understands what's coming for it, is prepared, and with each passing day is probably even more prepared. The fourth side reason, Polomi, is that it cannot be a lightning blitzkrieg operation this time. Also because, remember, there is a lot of public sentiment. I doubt there is going to be, after October the 7th, any real appetite for more losses. And the more hurriedly and more large-scale an operation tends to be, the risk of more casualties of the IDF is that much greater. And therefore, I think this time the ground operation is going to be much slower, much more deliberate, and it's going to take much longer.
My colleague Shiv Arur continues to be live with us from close to the Gaza Strip. In fact, Shiv, there was a lot of outrage yesterday when this ground offensive was started and, intensified in a way the assault that Israel has been carrying out against Hamas. There was a lot of outrage. We know of the UNGA vote as well, calling for an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and for that corridor to be created so that aid could reach Gaza. I want to understand from you, what is Israel's response? Because when you bomb or you conduct an airstrike and you claim that, hospitals are where Hamas is hiding because they know that nobody would, target a hospital. But if you do target establishments, there would be collateral damage. There would be innocent civilians who could be caught in the crossfire. What is Israel's response?
That's a very good question. I'll start by saying, Polomi, systemically, domestically, politically, and otherwise, Israel's disenchantment with the United Nations is probably at its lowest ebb right now. Anything that the United Nations says right now is going straight out the window as far as Israel is concerned, because they believe that the United Nations has an agenda to run and is focusing more on the humanitarian crisis, which is no doubt happening. And if you can see in the distance, Polomi, one more airstrike in the distance somewhere probably near Gaza City has just taken place while we're talking. As far as the collateral damage is concerned, now Israel has always had a kind of protocol response to this. They always say that we have a right to defend ourselves. What happened on October the 7th is, like a second Holocaust. It's the biggest attack that Israel has suffered, since the post-war period, which is true in terms of numbers. Secondly, they say that all protocols have been, carried out in terms of asking the people of Gaza and civilians to leave, but it is that the Hamas that is using them as as human shields, conducting its operations in subterranean, cabins below hospitals like the Al-Shifa, that it continues to, operate and position its rockets and other offensive systems from schools and hospitals and, residential neighborhoods, and that it embeds itself in residential areas so as to, give the aggressor pause. Israel this time, in terms of, the care it is, it professes to take to differentiate between, neighborhoods that may have civilians and cause collateral damage. I think the appetite for that is quantifiably less as a result of the scale of what happened on October the 7th. That may be difficult to digest for many. It is difficult reporting it from here, I can tell you that, Polomi, but it also goes down to the fact that Israel is right now fighting not just militarily on many fronts, but also politically, geopolitically, ideologically on many fronts. It has pressure from many groups. It is still coming to terms with the fact that its biggest ally, the United States, while it has deployed big in the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean, is not unambiguously in solidarity with it, because it is parallelly cautioning Israel and asking it not to conduct this large-scale ground operation. And therefore, the element of collateral damage has been a constant. It has been a constant throughout the Israel-Palestine conflict. You see it in every single cycle of violence in this conflict. And this time, however, I think the point goes to show that Israel says, look, we've been bled more badly than we've ever been bled before. This is the worst thing that the Jewish state has suffered since the Holocaust. So please don't mind us as we continue to try and defend ourselves. Obviously, that doesn't mean they're saying, we don't care about civilians. But those civilian casualties, as you and I have seen, Polomi, in the reports that are coming out from Gaza, are very, very real. Claim versus counterclaim can continue to happen over numbers, but a humanitarian disaster is undoubtedly unfolding in Gaza behind me, and it's only set to get worse as the deployments, the intensity of the operations increase. So that's what Israel's stand really is right now. They don't feel like they owe an explanation to anyone at this point of time.
Okay. Shiv, also just taking from that, as far as that UNGA vote was concerned, India, of course, abstained as far as that vote was concerned, because our position was there was no mention of the October 7 attack, there was no mention of Hamas, and hence we did not sign on the dotted line as far as that resolution was concerned. Given the background of India's foreign policy vis-a-vis the Israel-Palestine conflict, how we've always stood for a two-state solution, etc., how do you see the position we took yesterday?
I think two different things, and I'll talk about both of them because it's a good question, and believe me, even among international journalists here, it's become a pretty big talking point. Polomi, first let's talk about the UN General Assembly vote. The Security Council vote. The fact, the GA vote. The fact is that India has taken a principled position as far as Hamas terrorism is concerned. That was borne out by Prime Minister Modi's statement, which was one of the first by a world leader, unambiguously condemning it as an act of terror and expressing solidarity with Israel. In keeping with that, a Jordan-sponsored resolution calling for a humanitarian pause that does not mention that the trigger for this entire crisis was a terrorist attack, was seen to be simply untenable as far as India is concerned, and inconsistent with Indian foreign policy itself. So that's the reason it went through. But remember that even while India abstained, it did uphold the words about calling for a peaceful resolution and a cessation of hostilities. Those are very important phrases that most critics of India's stand in the UN to abstain, conveniently miss out. Now let's come to India's policy as far as this is concerned. India's policy on Ukraine last year was also heavily criticized. You know how that turned out. India's policy as far as Israel and Palestine has always been nuanced. It's always been nuanced, even though recent developments have been colored by a marked proximity between India and Israel. India very, very firmly, very, very acutely distinguishes between relations and terrorism, and that, I think, shapes that foreign policy. It supports a two-state solution. It supports a mutually sustainable two-state solution and peace between Israel and Palestine, but that does not mean it will not condemn terror. And as you saw earlier today, Polomi, and as you reported, Israel is now hoping that India bans the Hamas as well.